everyone, Marcel is my name. I'm the Niche Fragrance Collector, and I am continuing the story on all things Paris Monte Carlo. If you've missed the earlier ones, I talked about Patchouli Nosy Bee, Ylang Ylang, also talked about Santal du Pacifique. The key component to all this is the perfumer who is, and the owner of the business is Jean-Luca Paris. And Jean-Luca is all about respecting the note, that key ingredient in the fragrance, making sure not to crowd it with other things. Now, one thing that I absolutely adore is citrus fragrances. Forever talking about citrus fragrances, and as I watch the videos as I'm editing, I'm always saying the same thing. I really love citrus fragrances, and I'm like, I even talk to myself to the screen. I'm like, we know, dude, you love citrus fragrances. So I love citrus fragrances. So what I wanted to do today is talk about the Italian collection within the Paris Monte Carlo, and also talk about why did Jean-Luca choose Italy for its citrus. And it's funny that, and not only Jean-Luca, but whenever you talk about citrus, perfumers actually say where they get it from. Like bergamot, they get it from Calabria. In this case here, the orange is from Sicily, same for the mandarin. So why the south of Italy? What's that about? You know me and stories. We got to go back in time. Back in the 13th century, during the Black Plague, there was a misunderstanding that diseases was carried via bad smells. So there were good smells and bad smells. If you permeated your house with good smells, like sweet woods and things of that nature, sage, then you would be safe from diseases. Not so much from bad juju, because people still do the sage, burning the thing. That's for the bad juju to get out of the premises. This is talking about diseases now. And so I'm sure you've seen the imagery of what used to be called plague doctors. And it's basically, they were physicians, they were actual doctors. I love that these doctors would, do things like, we need to open you up, cut you open, we're gonna get that bad blood out of there, and we'll stitch you up, and bada bing, you'll be fine again. And everybody would die. I mean, like, oh yeah, didn't get all that bad blood out. So these plague doctors had these long beaks. I'm sure you've seen it. And what was that about? So what they would do is that they would put sweet aromas or smells on herbs, honey, all these different sort of components at the end of the beak, two nostrils there. And so the idea was that by the time that the air came to them, that it had been, I guess, purified because of these sweet smells, and they wouldn't get diseased. One thing that did emerge around about the same time, probably about 1690, I think it was a thing called aqua mirabilis. And aqua mirabilis had two parts to it. One, it was a sweet smell. So this is the early birth of perfumes, but not for, I guess, hedonistic reasons, to make you feel good or smell great. It was purely as a medicine. So these aqua mirabilis, essentially translated, is miracle water that had things like herbs and sage and thyme and things of that nature. It had woods and these sort of components. But one of the key ingredients in there was esprit de vin, so wine spirit, so therefore alcohol. And so what people would do is they would put on these aqua mirabilis on wounds, on something that was ailing them, and naturally, because it had alcohol in it, it would then kill the bacteria. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. So you can imagine, again, this is around the 1600s. So things like that would be like, yes, I knew it. Not only did it have a good smell, but it healed. So hence why aqua mirabilis exploded as a product. And throughout Europe, aqua mirabilis, and you have to also remember they, not 200 years prior, had just come out of the bubonic plague, which wiped out just about all of Europe. So these sorts of things people were grabbing onto. Around 1709, a man by the name of Giovanni Maria Farina created Eau de Cologne. And it's interesting, Eau de Cologne has stayed to this day. Actually, it's a whole category. So an Eau de Cologne is essentially a very light citrus-based fragrance, 2 to 5% worth of oils in there. But that formula, that Eau de Cologne, was what Farina created back in 1709. In it, he used some of the ingredients that were already found in the aqua mirabilis, with the exception that he added citrus in there. He was Italian, and he was familiar with the citruses grown in Italy. He was living in Germany, in the town of Cologne. hence why he called his water eau de cologne. And that birthed that whole thing there. But the essence of it is that it was now a citrus-based with some green notes, some herbs and things of that nature, but it had that esprit de vin, which gave it the healing properties. Now that exploded, I guess the unique signature scent of that citrus. And back in that 1700, that just exploded. Fast forward, 1860, Louis Pasteur discovered that there was such thing as microorganisms, which create bacteria, germs, and so the whole theory of by projecting good smells, you emit the diseases, that all got thrown out the window with science now. And so what stayed was the fact that, and so before people were using the eau de cologne as a medicine, now they were using it purely for pleasure, and that is they enjoyed that citrus, that eau de cologne signature scent. Now around about the same time, so 1880, a man by the name of Gianfranco Capua basically started growing citrus in the south around Calabria of Italy. And as a result of that, 1880 was the birth of the technology, the know-how, the ability to now create an industry and extract essential oils from citrus. And that, till now, the Capua family are the ones who cultivate, grow all the different citruses that you're familiar with in fragrances. And this is what Gianluca wanted to tap into. He wanted to celebrate the history of his home, the history of his country, and the know-how. So what is it about citrus? Citrus fragrances, in my definition, is just pure hedonistic joy. The moment you spray, you're instantly in love, you're instantly, the payoff is really fast. You don't have to wait for the dry down. Sometimes you spray a fragrance and you're like, oh wow, it's a bit strong. I'm gonna wait for the dry down. Citrus fragrances, you're just in this joyful state instantly. Boom, hits, and then you're just happy. So let me start spraying. Let me begin with this one. And I'm gonna spray on skin. I am gonna do this. All right, so this is Arancia di Sicilia. And Arancia di Sicilia was my very first one. It's a very easy first love. There's nothing about this that you are like, oh, I'm not so sure, or I don't know when I would wear this. What I like about Arancia di Sicilia is that it uses the Sanguinella orange. And the Sanguinella is a blood orange. I've never tasted it, so I don't know its taste profile. From the things that I've read, it is the sweet. Normally blood oranges are very bitter. It is the sweetest in that blood orange category. It is very aromatic. It is very sweet to the taste. And it's very citrus. It's got that beautiful orange vibe to it. For me, not having tasted the Sanguinella orange, I can imagine it through the scent profile of this fragrance. So my reference marker is the oranges that I have. And for me, a natural orange is sweet, is slightly acidic. There is a slight bitterness to it, beautiful citrus, aromatic. And again, Arancia di Sicilia are all those components there. You know what I love about the fragrances from Paris Monte Carlo is that you don't have to second guess what am I smelling. The name of the fragrance, so even if you don't look at the name of the fragrance is the fragrance. So even if you were to spray and smell, you would go, oh wow, this is an orange fragrance. And then as you started exploring, you're like, oh yeah, this is an orange fragrance. You know, just that it's got an Italian name, Arancia di Sicilia. The opening note is Arancia Sanguinella. Then in the heart is an almond accord with cinnamon. In the base is a labdanum absolute, a cafe absolute, iris, musk, and amber. As I was preparing for this episode, I was reading the notes and I'm reading the notes and smelling the fragrance, and I'm like, I'm just getting orange. I'm getting a vibrant, sweet, a little bit bitter in the base down there, but an orange. I don't pick up the iris, the cinnamon. I'm like, when I read cinnamon, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not detecting that at all. So here's the key, and I've said this in the previous videos, that Gianluca is more focused on respecting the key note. What are we talking about? Arancia. So let's not crowd it. Let's support that Arancia to become all that it needs to be. Naturally, in a fragrance, you have your top, your heart, your base notes, and naturally, a citrus molecule is the first that comes out, but it's the first to go away also. So the key is, for the perfume, or the task, is how do you keep that orange vibe all the way through the fragrance and respecting that all the way down? Because the first thing you smell is that orange, but as it begins to dry down, I'm still getting orange. I'm still getting this beautiful candy-like orange. It's a masterful creation because all the way through, you're getting this orange fragrance. For me, the fragrance lasts 5 to 6 hours comfortably, and I get a moderate sillage. The first hour or two, it has nice trail. You can, the sillage is beautiful, but then it does come down into more of a moderate. It doesn't become a body scent. So none of these fragrances are body scents. I'm still getting people detecting the fragrance on me. I definitely can pick it up on me. And I don't even have to be like moving around. The fragrance is constantly around me. For me, this is my summer fragrance. I love it when it's bright, when it's sunny. Arancia just comes alive on my skin. All right, let me move on to the next one. Mandarino di Sicilia. It is a true mandarin note, but without the sweetness. It's juicy on the opening, but it goes green. If I compare the two, Arancia is still candy, it's still vibrant, it's still citrus alive. And Mandarino now, I've come off that very bright sort of juicy mandarin opening, and I'm moving more into a green wood-like sort of place. Gianluca mentioned that when he created Mandarino di Sicilia, he wanted to have the full experience of the mandarin tree. So you get the fruit, the juiciness of it, but you also get the leaf. If you grab that leaf and you crush it, you get the greenness mixed in with that citrus component, but you also get the tree itself, the bark. And that's what I find happens here. They use the green mandarin before it's ripened. So that's one oil that they extract. And then they also extract the juicy orange mandarin oil, and they blend these two together. On the opening, you get a green mandarin with bitter orange and petitgrain. Then in the heart, a jasmine absolute, geranium with orange blossom. And finally in the base, cedarwood, amber, and musk. This is my going out fragrance on a summery day. So it still has that citrus vibrance with that woodiness now. There are other facets coming through. There is a greenness here. I find that the fragrance lasts also about 5 to 6 hours, actually a little bit less. It's probably more in the 5 hours. I find that the sillage on this is very positive. It has a beautiful push. I would say on equal par with the Arancia. So nice push on it. The moment that I start to sweat, heat up, the fragrance reemerges and pushes itself out again. Allora, so the last one is the new one. This was released this year. I discovered it first in the Lago di Garda store. And this one here has become my favorite. Am I not allowed to say that? When it comes to a neroli fragrance, this captures every part of it. So right now, we're going through spring. The night air is full of neroli. So I'm getting that beautiful white floral, orange tinged, but not a headiness, not like a jasmine headiness. It's a little bit more grounded. There's a slight orange to it, but it's definitely a white floral. It's just divine. I find that Neroli Mediterraneo is just that. It's all the way through. It is this beautiful orange blossom that just stays on my skin. Now I find that for me, Neroli Mediterraneo is an all year round fragrance. I was recently traveling around Australia. We have a state here. It's not even a state. It's just a city, Canberra. The way I said it to you, Canberra. I was working in Canberra, and it's always cold. You could be, middle of summer, you go to Canberra and you need a jacket. I'm sorry, there's Canberrians out there. I apologize if I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Mind you, you guys can make fun of me or make fun of us. In Melbourne, we get all seasons in one day. Anyway, I was in Canberra. It was very cold, and I took Neroli Mediterraneo with me because I knew it was going to be cold, and I just wanted sunshine. I wanted to bring some level of sunshine to this very cold place. So I was spraying this baby, and it was divine. It was It was my, as I said, my day fragrance. I was getting probably about 5 to 6 hours on this too. I find that all of these have nice staying power. Citrus fragrances tend to evaporate pretty quickly. The way that Jean-Luc has created these with the cedar, the amber, and those musks in the base, it is creating some kind of, well, it is creating an anchor for those earlier citrus notes to hang around, to stay with you, and allow that fragrance to be present. Cold weather, fantastic. Warm weather, the moment it heats up, Neroli Mediterrano is just like spectacular also. And it's interesting. This one here has more of a jasmine, white floral, orange blossom kind of vibe to it. Arancia, it's retaining its orange candy-like presence. And Mandarino has got this, actually I almost feel like I'm not biting into the peel, but there is a bitterness and there is a woodiness. The Mandarino is still there. That Mandarino scent profile is still there. But now there's all those other nuances. On the opening, it's a Sicilian bitter orange with Sicilian mandarin, bergamot from Calabria. In the heart is ginger, geranium absolute, Neroli Italia, orange flower absolute, petitgrain, and pepper. And finally in the base, cedarwood, iris, and musk. Neroli, where does that name come from? Anna Maria Orsini in the 17th century. She was the princess of Nerola in Italy. And one thing that she loved to do was scent her leather goods, her gloves in particular, with orange blossoms. So I was going to say she grabbed it. I don't think she grabbed anything. Her people grabbed it and scented her gloves. She also loved to bath in orange blossom. It became so popular, and because she was the princess, it then became named Neroli. You know what's interesting? When you spray these, when I isolate and spread them independently, all I think about is citrus. So if I spray the Neroli, I'm thinking, wow, this is a beautiful citrus fragrance with Neroli components and that jasmine, that white floral. But now if I have all three of them on me, some are more citrus than others. Arancia is beautiful orange. I mean, it's almost like I feel like I grabbed an orange and just squeezed it on me with the oils, the juice itself. It is beautifully divinely orange. A slight vanilla tone to it. There is a sweetness in here. The mandarin or the Mandarino has that mandarin component to it, but I'm getting the other facets of the green, the woods. And then finally, the Neroli is a very subtle orange blossom, white floral, slightly woody in the base. Anyway, just glorious. I find, again, for me, citrus fragrances all year round, I guess where they blossom the best is in certain heat levels. Arancia for summer, Mandarino, spring, that kind of not too much cold weather. And Neroli, it's an all year round. Fantastic in cold weather, brilliant in warm weather. So there you have it. 3 amazing fragrances from Paris Monte Carlo, part of the Italian collection. There's 2 more, the Bergamot and the Cedro. Both are fantastic. In time, I will have as companions to their siblings over here. Look forward to your comments. Love to know what your favorite citrus fragrance is, and I'll see you guys all on the next episode.